What made Tiger Woods so unstoppable in 2000? And how does Scottie Scheffler seem to win almost every event he plays? Let's compare the swings of these two dominant players. Alright, so first starting here at setup, looking at Tiger, we see him in more of that old school athletic position. We thought straight back, Adam Scott-like, bunch of knee bend. Scottie with similar knee flex, but we notice about Scottie here, he gets a bunch more of this thoracic spine bent forward, the upper back rounding, more of this kind of relaxed slouch kind of look. We'll also see the space between their hands. Tiger a little further, Scottie a little closer. Scottie does stand closer to the ball. You can see that down, how far the ball is from their toes. And then also kind of seeing how much Tiger's arms reach out versus Scottie's are much more kind of down underneath him. As they take the club back, we'll notice how Tiger's club face a little bit more open than Scottie's. Scottie's is a little bit more down to the ground, more kind of new school thinking, that club face on a similar angle to the spine. Tiger's a little bit more kind of up to the sky. And that's kind of what we thought back in the day. A little bit more toe up was neutral. Now more towards the spine angles, a little bit more neutral and square. Now taking the club up to the top, we're going to notice a big difference between the two. You'll watch Tiger, he's going to kind of get his arms and hands going a little bit more vertical going back up to the top. Versus Scottie, you see he kind of pulls his hands back around him more. It's kind of this flatter looking playing as he's going back. Scottie's hands are kind of more over his bicep here at the top versus Tiger's more over top of his shoulder. So just a different position there. And because Scottie pulls his hands around him more going back, watch this right elbow gets pulled back behind him as well in that process. Versus Tiger, go back here to the takeaway, he's going to feel like that elbow staying in towards the center all the way up to the top. And like he's almost like trying to pinch this ball in between his elbows there. And that keeps that elbow of his more into the center, more of a vertical right arm than Scottie's kind of winging out there, at flying out at the top. Both of them getting in more of this kind of across the line position, which for most amateur golfers just ends up becoming this kind of steep mess coming down where they're just needing to compensate, early extending, sliding, all these kind of things. And it's going to be interesting to see with Scottie because he has a bunch of these quote unquote swing issues that we would see in a lot of amateur golfers that we wouldn't recommend. But Scottie is this phenomenal athlete that can make center contact all day long. So they both kind of start down from that position in a bit of a steep shaft starting down. Now, both of them are going to be shallowing in different ways. We'll just get those headlines drawn on there so we can kind of monitor that in the downswing. But one thing I want to show for Tiger as he's coming down, the difference in their arms. So Tiger from one elbow to the other elbow kind of has this, looked like it's at 7 degrees there. Scottie's got about 2-degree angle. Tiger's forearms and arms are more on this angled position, which makes it easier for him to have that shaft flatter versus Scottie would more naturally be in a more upright position with that shaft because of his arms. But if you look already, Scottie's head really moving back, and we're only halfway through the downswing, okay? And we kind of keep watching this as we go down. Tiger stays relatively in a similar position, but Scottie keeps moving back. So if we kind of watch where Scottie was at the top and how much he moves back, that action there of that upper body, that head moving away is a shallowing move, right? You call it early extension, whatever you like. That is a shallowing move, which most people can't get away with. And we'll see from the face on that Scottie does even another thing to help shallow that club because he gets a little too steep coming down. And if he doesn't do anything from here and he just rotates hard, he would pound down into that ground really hard and get quite over the top. The other thing to look at here is their rotation. Tiger's hips really open, but his shoulders not really at all. Scottie's hips open a bit, but his shoulders open just a little bit as well. So Scottie's lower body and upper body are kind of rotating more in unison versus Tiger, where there's this huge separation. Tiger in that downswing really using his arms, that trail elbow, that right elbow, to kind of get in front of his body to kind of help maintain this flatter shaft as he's coming down, and his shoulders not rotating a ton, which helps him also make sure that shaft doesn't get too steep. It kind of works flatter continuously all the way down to impact. And then we'll take a good look at Scottie's footwork from the face on in a second here, and then both up into a nice high finish. So now taking a look at how they compare from the face on, they both have very similar neutral grips. Moving into the takeaway here, we're going to notice that swings are quite wide, arms are wide, club is wide. There's not a lot of wrist hinge going on just yet with either of them. But we'll notice after about this stage here, where the lead arm's parallel to the ground, we're going to start seeing Tiger's shaft getting a little bit more vertical than Scottie's, a little bit more wrist hinge happening with Tiger to the top than with Scottie, who doesn't really add much wrist hinge at all there at the top of the swing. Here we can see quite a big difference in the amount of angle that they have in there, and this is where Tiger can get a lot of his speed using the leg, the wrist hinge there, whereas Scottie, he gets his hands so high and away from the ball that it gives him so much time to generate speed in the swing. Higher hands, further from the ball, does allow you to gain and generate more speed into the downswing. We'll also notice how Tiger's arms and hands are more out in front of the chest, whereas as we saw from down the line view, Scottie's arms, elbows get really pulled behind him, and so that's where his hands get high, but not quite as much out in front of the chest as Tiger's is there at the top. And if we go back to setup here and draw a few lines, one on the head and one just a couple inches out front of the lead hip on both of them. And what we want to watch here is from the top down, they're both in similar positions here to those lines at this stage, but this is where Scottie uses one more thing to shallow his club, and that's his big slide. So if we watch kind of Tiger coming down, he kind of gets to that line and rotates. Now we watch Scottie, who gets to that line and keeps going, drives right through that line. Huge lateral shift going on to that lower body while maintaining. You can see how hard it looks like his head straining to keep that head and neck back, trying to shallow that club. But the more that lower body slides and the upper body stays back, the more this spine tilts back, the more you're going to be able to shallow or flatten that shaft coming down. And this is the other move that he has in the downswing to shallow that club. We saw from the down the line that Scottie's head really moving away from the golf ball in the downswing was his shallowing move, but now we see from the face on he's got one more. Both of these things going together, shallowing that club because of how steep it was to start down. Again, most golfers try to do this and just will not be able to play anywhere near good golf. And due to that massive shift of this, push off this right foot, that's where we see this footwork come in. He pushes so hard off that right foot, drives into that left foot, he almost falls over. And we see him fall over from time to time, right? But that's where he gets so far to the outside of that left foot, spins around, and after he pushes off that right foot so hard, that right foot drags with him to that left side. Whereas Tiger, a little bit more of that standard into that left foot, push off, and rotate through to a nice kind of balanced finish. You don't see Tiger falling over very often, even when he is, going at it pretty hard with the driver. So two very different golf swings, but both very dominant. In my opinion, Tiger's had this swing that's been like a work of art. Maybe not each version of the swing that he's had over the years, but overall it's been a swing I've loved to watch. But let me know in the comments below, should we be teaching more golfers to swing like Scottie these days? Because he's pretty dominant.